I don't think people talk enough about how unsettling My Neighbor Totoro is. I'm not here to say that this movie is actually super dark or something. It's not, but people often talk about it as if it's some sort of exceptionally simple kids movie with just good vibes and no plot, only elevated by the stuff common to Studio Ghibli projects: music, visuals, artistic creativity, and detail. And sure, this isn't an especially complex movie. There's no huge cast creating a dense web of interactions or some crazy plot twist. But I think we're underselling it when we act like there's nothing interesting here. Like, do you remember the part where Satsuki and Mei find the stairs leading up to the attic? This is not a shot that belongs in the purely positive basic children's movie people often describe Totoro as. Neither is the way the cat bus smiles, or this evil fucking goat. Having random creepy stuff doesn't immediately make a movie interesting, but with such an accomplished director and team behind this film, I think it's safe to say that these elements certainly hint at a greater purpose they might be contributing to. To figure out what exactly, I'll put forward a leading question. What is the actual central conflict of My Neighbor Totoro? I've often heard criticism of this film for supposedly not having a driving conflict. That most of the runtime simply involves the girls getting into inconsequential shenanigans with the mystical creatures. There's some tension for the last 20 minutes of the movie, but it gets resolved extremely quickly, and like, do the girls even learn anything from this? If you're ever in danger, just get Totoro to call the cat bus for you. That doesn't sound like a satisfying narrative. But this betrays a lack of understanding of the movie. Tell me, have you even thought to question, is Totoro real? Are any of the creatures or other magical elements of the movie real? One thing you should notice about the movie is that it is constantly prompting the viewer to question what stuff is actually real versus just the imagination of the children. When we first see the so-called soot gremlins, they quickly disappear just like shadows being dispersed by the light or bugs scattering when they sense a threat. Mei falls asleep with Totoro, but then Satsuki finds her sleeping alone in a different place, and they are unable to find the entrance to the Totoro Grove, or cave, or whatever this is. They do the tree dance to make the trees grow, but they end up just being little sprouts in the morning. The film's magical scenes are often followed up with the possibility that they didn't happen as shown. All of these things might as well have happened in a world where the magical creatures didn't really exist, but were created or altered in the minds of the children, and the movie deliberately draws attention to this possibility.
Where's Totoro? Maybe you were dreaming.
Coinciding with this are the aforementioned creepy, unsettling, uncomfortable elements. The dark stairwell, the old rotting house, the goat, this shot of Mei placed inside Totoro's mouth, the cat bus's smile, and the most important of these, which is the fact that the girl's mother is in the hospital. Amongst all the joy that is otherwise happening, there's a constant threat growing underneath the surface of the movie regarding the mother's sickness. At first, it's a minor, missable detail that the mother isn't with them as they drive to their new home, but as the situation is brought up and explained more, it begins to interfere with the events of the story. The scene of the girls waiting at the bus stop after their dad didn't show up on the usual bus is one of the most important in this respect because it communicates a growing dread that something has gone wrong, or that even if things are fine now, they might not stay that way. Totoro helps Satsuki get through the experience by being a calming and entertaining presence, but really all he's doing is keeping her mind off the current situation to prevent the stress, worry, and frustration that she might have otherwise felt. And that seems true of all the girls' interactions with the creatures in this movie up to this point. The material effect they have on the world of the story is doubtful, and so they seem to serve simply as distractions from the possibility of something going wrong. This possibility grows in the minds of the audience throughout the movie. It is fed consistently and deliberately with foreboding imagery and questions of what is real. The gradual introduction of darker subject matter makes the possibility of a dark turn feel even more certain, and it threatens to burst out once the climax is introduced, when the health of the girl's mother seems most at threat and Mei gets lost on the way to see her, and everything suddenly hinges on the reality of the creatures. It wouldn't be unreasonable for someone even slightly skeptical to feel an odd sense of doom during this final sequence, that despite all the overwhelmingly childish joy, something terrible might happen, that this is all just a distraction from the mom's inevitable death, that the kids are just pretending that something could magically happen to save her, that maybe even Mei is a temporary delusion allowing Satsuki to believe her sister is safe and she will instead end up dead on the side of the road somewhere. Even when seeing their mom fine in the hospital, it's still hard to suppress the discomfort and possibility that this is still their imagination, and it's clear that the movie very easily could have ended like this. To the audience, it feels like it's been hinting at such a twist the entire time. This final situation seems like a logical place for it to happen, and the cat bus's creepy smile seems to indicate that it's about to. But it doesn't. It simply chooses to end in a happy place, as if the existence of Totoro and the gang was never in question, as if nothing bad was ever foreshadowed. In the end, the corn is delivered, the mom is fine, the kids walk home with their neighbors, and are reunited with their parents in the credits as happy music plays. So, what was the point of all that weird stuff? Is it not unsatisfying to end so suddenly without a full payoff to those things? We still don't know. Why is My Neighbor Totoro kinda creepy? Well, it seems that the elements of this movie that instill the possibility of tragedy are not as important in the story as they are to us, the audience. They seem to foreshadow doom that never happens, and we are left feeling like something bad should have happened. But this uncomfortable feeling, and the questions that create the unease, is Totoro real? Why is it foreshadowing doom? Only matter to the audience. For Satsuki and Mei, the magic simply just ends up being real. The discomfort only arises in us watching the events unfold because we have our doubts, because we have been shown reason to doubt throughout the whole movie, and then we are suddenly asked if we can accept an uncomplicated good ending. In other words, the film creates a conflict not within its own text, but between the text and the audience, a conflict that develops throughout the film over what we can accept as real, and eventually climaxes with a difficult situation, if we can believe the happy ending or not. This is the true conflict of My Neighbor Totoro. It's focused on us, on if we believe the magic is real or not, on if the unsettling elements can slowly break down our ability to believe, if they can make us feel uncomfortable or worried for the characters, and therefore on how we expect the film to end. We either accept the magic completely and feel pure good vibes the whole way through, or we have the slightest bit of doubt about it and end up feeling that something bad must happen. And so even as the girls seem to have succeeded, the cat bus smiles behind them as if reveling in our discomfort, in our uncertainty over whether this can be true or not. But of course, it is true. The happy ending must be accepted because despite everything I've talked about, it makes the most sense, not just based on what we'd expect from a cute G-rated animated film, but because it aligns with the rest of the movie thematically. Looking at My Neighbor Totoro this way makes the audience's experience mirror that of the characters, specifically a lesson that Satsuki and Mei encounter throughout the movie. While we experience various cinematic elements that we might expect to foreshadow a dark turn, the girls are also confronted with fair reasons to feel fear or worry about what is to come, from stuff like creepy staircases and weird creatures to needing to adjust to new life circumstances, moving into an old house that's falling apart, and dealing with being separated from their mother due to her health concerns. When met with these situations, though, the girls are taught to not be paralyzed by fear, but instead to laugh in the face of it, to accept these things they can't control as a part of life, but still carry out their responsibilities, still do kind things for those around them, and maybe most central to this movie in particular, still try to find some joy. Such a mindset makes Totoro and the other creatures no longer delusions or harmful distractions from painful reality, but a necessary component of life, encountering new things and accepting them with a sense of wonder and finding ways to just have a good time, despite things possibly going wrong elsewhere. The feeling that the end is sudden or unsatisfying, then, is lingering unresolved tension from this true conflict of the movie. Different elements have been presented to potentially weaken our comfort and optimism, but then the film chooses to end by slapping us across the face for thinking it could have ended with anything but a positive conclusion. After all, there's value for us in viewing things in a similar way, to avoid getting paralyzed by doom despite how foreboding the future might seem, to dare to be happy and full of joyous whimsy in the face of bad circumstances we can't control, to stay positivity pilled and let ourselves believe that a good ending is still possible, maybe farther away than we first thought or more complicated than we envisioned, but it's still there. And it all starts with letting yourself believe that this Ghibli film can end in a good place, no matter how hard that may seem. Because there is a twist in My Neighbor Totoro, and it's that there is a happy ending.